Hi everybody, it's Stephanie. Today I'll be showing you all how to make this beautiful Valentine's Day cake using an acrylic separator I got from Prop Options. Plus, I'll be showing you all how to make this really cute wafer paper bow on the top. So I have a lot of really fun stuff to show you all. Let's get started. Okay, I've already filled my cakes and the sizes of them are an 8-inch and a 4-inch. And I also have a fresh batch of my hybrid buttercream. Both of my cakes are getting a thin crumb coat of buttercream, and then I pop them into the refrigerator to set up, and then I bring them back out and I start working on the smoothing of the buttercream. This is always an important step, so you want to spend a good amount of time doing that. On my smaller cake, I tried something different, so I left the top edge of frosting looking rough without smoothing it on the top, and then I chilled it that way. And once it was cold, I ran a knife along the top edge to cut off that buttercream to create the sharp edge. And I think that worked out pretty well. Alright, let's move on to the fondant. I like to knead the fondant out really well, and then I dust the countertop with cornstarch, but if that is too drying for you, you could also use powdered sugar or maybe a mix of the two. Once the fondant has been rolled out, drape it over the rolling pin and then unroll it onto the cake. Use the palm of your hands to smooth out the pleats of fondant while turning the turntable. So as I was smoothing out my smaller tier, it tore kind of near the bottom. If this cake were actually for someone, I'd probably redo it completely, but instead I just decided to try to repair it by pushing the seams of the tear together and then smoothing it out with my hands and a plastic smoother. It still has an elephant skin look to it, but that's okay, I'm just gonna go with it. Cut off the excess fondant and then smooth the sides with fondant smoothers. Sometimes I like to flip the cake over and I use a plastic smoother to push the top edge of the fondant down towards my countertop, and that will create a slightly sharper top edge. Other times I don't flip it, and then I just press two fondant smoothers together at the top edge to create the sharp edge. Okay, let's move on to the fun part, the decorating. I was thinking about doing some kind of wood grain trim on the bottom of the cake, but then I found this fancy rolling pin in my office that I haven't used in a bunch of years. So once I had the fondant strip rolled out, I used my fancy rolling pin to create the beautiful textured design. One side of my fondant strip gets cut with a straight edge and the other side is being cut with a circle cutter. Roll the strip up, brush the cake with edible glue, and then unroll that fondant strip onto the cake. And if you need to do any trimming or adjusting the strip to your liking, go ahead and do that. I needed to trim mine down just a little bit. And then a spray of edible glitter is always going to make it more beautiful. I found the cutest mini heart gummies at the grocery store, so I decided to create swags with these cute candies. But you can use any candy, sprinkles, or maybe even fondant flowers. I had to stick the candies on with royal icing because they were a little too heavy for edible glue. I just love how this looks. I think it looks so pretty. We're finished with the bottom tier, so let's move on to the wafer paper bow. Wafer paper is an edible paper made from potato starch, and it doesn't really have any type of taste or flavor to it, which is a good thing because we don't want anything interfering with the taste of our cake. I want my bow to look like pink satin, so I'm mixing together some pink and pearl sheen airbrush colors, and then I begin airbrushing the wafer paper. I colored both sides, and by the time I got it to the shade of pink I wanted, the paint was wet and it was too soft to work with, so I'm going to go ahead and let the paint dry completely before I make the bow. Okay, here it is all dry and beautiful. To make this bow, we will need about 5 strips. So each strip was about 1.5 inches wide, so I measured it and then I cut it into equal strips. I picked out 2 of the prettiest strips and I bent them together into a loop, and I trimmed both ends into a point, and these will be the 2 loops of the bow. I also need 2 more strips for the ribbons, so hold those together and then trim the ends into a point. We also need 1 small rectangle for the center of the bow. The wafer paper is flexible at this point, but not enough. A trick to soften it up is to steam it with a clothing steamer. And that is really going to soften up the wafer paper, so I can then pinch the ends of the loops together and shape them so they're really poofy and pretty looking. And once I'm happy with the shapes of the loops, I'm attaching them together with a little water. Next up, we need the rectangle of wafer paper for the middle of the bow, and you really have to steam this part very well because you need to fold over both sides of the rectangle and then wrap it around the middle of the bow, and then you can attach it to the back with a little bit of water and trim it down. The ribbons are easy, they need steamed as well, and then stick them to the top of the cake with some piping gel, and then arrange the bow ribbons to loosely hang down the cake, and then if you want to, you can attach it to the side with piping gel as well. And finally, attach the bow to the top of the cake with more piping gel. I can see why everyone loves working with wafer paper. It is so fun to work with, and this looks like a real bow. Before I stack the cakes, I need to add dowels. I'm using 5 bubble tea straws for dowels, and they were all cut to the same height of the cake, and then I pushed them down into the cake. If you are leaving the acrylic separator empty, you will need to cover those dowels with more fondant because they are visible through the separator. For this cake, we don't need to worry about that, so I'm gonna leave it as is. I added some royal icing to the center of the cake to help my separator stay in place, but that is a completely optional step. Place the separator on top of the cake and then add candy or whatever you want to add to it. I think roses or fairy lights would also be so beautiful. I didn't have enough candy to fill up the separator, so I added a glass in the middle to help fill it up. If you have to do this too, try to use one that's plastic so it's not so heavy. Okay, and then once it's full, place the lid on top. And then my cute top tier will sit right on top of the separator. Just a warning on this cake, I think it should be assembled at your party location. Since there is no central dowel going through it, I think it could potentially fall over in the car, so that is just something to remember. Just a couple more details. The last of my candies are being used as a trim around the edge of my top tier, and I also added a few heart sprinkles to help conceal my imperfect fondant. My cute Valentine's Day cake is complete. I absolutely love the fillable acrylic tier. I think it's such a unique and modern way of adding height to a cake. What do you think would look pretty inside of it? And thank you Prop Options for sending me this beautiful acrylic cake stand. I also made a really cute floating tier cake using a stand I got from Prop Options. So if you have not seen that video, you have to go check that one out. It is so cute. And thank you all for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have any ideas for me, please let me know in the comment section. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.